Yeah, just up until that first month. Yeah, so anyways, that.
Good evening. I'm going to call to order the City of Durango City Council regular meeting. The date is 9/4/2024 and the time is 5:31 p.m. Can I have a roll call?
Counselor Woodruff,
Here.
Mayor Buell,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazdi,
Here.
Counselor Youssef,
Here.
and Counselor Bosman's.
All right, item 2, introduction of translator.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I hope you can hear my audio okay. Diego Pons here today with my colleague, Liz Torres. We're here with the CLC. We'll keep providing language interpretation in English and Spanish for today's meeting here on Zoom. After I finish giving the instructions, as usual, you'll see that globe icon that'll appear in the bottom right-hand corner of your computer screen. That globe icon will say interpretation. Please select the globe icon and please choose your preferred language. And if you're joining the meeting on your cell phone or your tablet, please look for the more button or the 3 dots button to select your preferred language this other way. So if you're not fully bilingual, we strongly encourage you to select your preferred language so you can use the interpretation whenever someone's going to be speaking in the opposite language. And if you're bilingual, feel free to listen to everyone in their original language. As always, just please make sure you're speaking at a conversational pace like this, and please make sure you don't pick up your reading speed. So thank you so much for that. Buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Yo soy Diego Pons. Estoy aquí con mi colega Liz Torres de parte del grupo El CLC. Vamos a continuar hoy interpretando la reunión hoy en inglés y en español, utilizando la interpretación simultánea aquí en Zoom. Cuando yo termine de dar estas instrucciones, se activa la interpretación y en ese momento va a aparecer un icono de un globo de la Tierra que va a decir interpretación allá abajo en la derecha de su pantalla. Asegúrese por favor de elegir ese icono del globo de la Tierra y por favor seleccione su idioma preferido. Pero si hoy usted está asistiendo a la reunión en su celular o en su tableta, por favor busque la opción que dice More, que quiere decir más, o posiblemente el botón de 3 puntos para que pueda elegir su idioma preferido de esta otra manera. Así que si usted no es completamente bilingüe, le vamos a aconsejar que elija su idioma preferido para que pueda utilizar interpretación cuando alguien está hablando en el otro idioma. Si usted sí es bilingüe, siéntase libre de escuchar a todos hoy en su idioma original. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Item 3, opening remarks by mayor and council. Any opening remarks by anybody? I know there was some confusion with the signups for public comment. And so I just wanted to clarify that anything under public comment on agenda items only, that is for public comment on items that we're making decisions on tonight. So if you're if you want to comment on the Vision Zero update or the Midtown Safety and Connectivity Project, those are just updates and there's no council decision being done on those tonight. If after the updates, council wants to direct staff further, we'll bring that up during new business at the very end of the agenda, and it'll be put on a future council meeting. I hope that makes sense. And so those would fall under non-agenda items for public participation. Okay. Just as clarification. So we'll move on. Item 4, presentations and proclamations. We have 4.1 Vision Zero update. It's a request by Councilor Woodruff. Staff presentation by Devin. Great.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. Devin King, Multimodal Manager for the city. So thank you for introducing this. This topic was requested by Councilor Woodruff. So you know, I know that there have been comments brought to city councilors as well as during the meeting regarding Vision Zero. I think there is a group in the community who has been actively working on it and pursuing it. So I'm just here this evening to present a little more information about Vision Zero as the topic itself. So I'll start off with just background as to what exactly it is, the relevance to our community, and then options regarding it if it's something that council wants to look more into. So what is Vision Zero? It is a different approach to traffic safety than has been done for the last 60 plus years. Zero is the goal, and what we mean, what the folks in the transportation realm mean by that is zero fatalities and zero serious injuries. Serious injury is, something where somebody's going to the hospital, they have, everything from lacerated kidneys to broken bones, etc. You name it. That's a serious injury. So one key piece to this is the safe system approach. The previous approach that I kind of mentioned a little bit before is basically education. Fatalities are unavoidable, so we're never going to get rid of them. And it's just, we should accept that. And the education is how we achieve having no mistakes. So education is how we achieve perfection in the transportation realm. So drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, nobody is going to make a mistake. Therefore, nobody will die as a result. The safe system approach looks at it in a different way, that fatalities are preventable. Humans aren't perfect. We all make mistakes. And we design for those mistakes. And there's multiple layers to prevent serious injuries and fatalities. So the best way to describe this is, and this comes from the Federal Highway Administration, so don't give me credit, I didn't make this up, is basically if you think about multiple layers of Swiss cheese and how all the holes don't necessarily line up. So if a car crash happens, and it gets through one of those holes, then there's other layers that can protect that from happening. So a good example is some of the layers are education is a component, enforcement is another component, the vehicles themselves are a component, the design of the roadway, emergency response, all of those are the different layers in which kind of help prevent serious injuries or fatalities occurring. So for example, if I'm driving down a road, somebody stops really abruptly in front of me, I have to slam on my brakes, but these days we have cars with automated braking systems that can, sometimes, yes, correct, that detect that beforehand in case the driver wasn't paying attention. But additionally, the speed limit was a factor in that if somebody was going fast. So if you can think of that, and then if the crash did happen, emergency response, how quickly does that happen if somebody was injured, and can they get to a hospital in time to reduce the impact to them? So that is just kind of a real quick breakdown of the safe systems approach. So why are communities looking at Vision Zero? Why is the Federal Highway Administration pushing this? One fatality or serious injury is too many. So, there's a lot of times that people ask, okay, if a serious injury or fatality is okay, how many are you comfortable with? And most people struggle to answer that question because it's zero, right? We shouldn't be comfortable with that. The past approach has not been working. So the graph to the right shows death by type of incident. And then at the bottom, that graph shows the different modes. So dark green is motor vehicles, gray is fixed objects, but that light green right there is pedestrians. And as you can see, that line is increasing and has been. So that just goes to show that our approach of just education and hoping that people do the right thing every time isn't really working. And unfortunately, after 60 years, that means that we should probably look at doing this a different way. The other key piece to this that I did want to touch on is that roadway deaths and serious injuries are costly. We don't like to think of, injuries and people as numbers, but there is a number associated with that. And, the latest estimates I've seen from the Federal Highway Administration is one serious injury can cost up to $655,000 to a community. And that's not just to that person, that's to the community that's costing. Wrong way. So some Vision Zero's examples, the Federal Highway Administration has recently adopted a Vision Zero goal. The Colorado Department of Transportation has a moving towards Vision Zero goal. Denver has adopted Vision Zero. Albuquerque recently did, Boulder has. There are multiple examples and they're all a little bit different. So none of them are exactly the same. What differs is, the timeline of that goal, how their approach and strategy is to it. But there are a lot of good examples out there, including in the West, and including some smaller communities. So how does this apply to Durango? It's not always in the news, but we do have fatalities on our roadways in town. So we've had 11 fatalities since 2019. Some of those are on CDOT highways, but some of those are also on our own roadways. A recent unfortunate example is Animas View Drive, which, city staff have been responding to. It is also a goal in the 2023 multimodal transportation plan. So under the safety goal, it is one of the highlighted ones under there. And then it does open the city up to more grant opportunities. So the Federal Highway Administration has made this a priority. So some federal grant opportunities like the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, which the city was awarded for a speed management plan, which we are going to be doing a very comprehensive look at all of Durango and how to reduce speeds in town in a comprehensive way. That grant specifically, if you're applying for a infrastructure implementation grant, you have to have basically a Vision Zero action plan, which our multimodal transportation plan fits some of the qualifications, but we don't actually have the Vision Zero goal in the plan. So what does Vision Zero look like? It typically takes the form of an action plan. So that could be creating a resolution that adopts that action plan. Fortunately, the city is in a good position because the multimodal transportation plan was recently updated in a way to be an action plan. But like I said, it doesn't have that goal of zero deaths. That was something that when we updated the plan, we really felt like that needed to come from the community and council, not necessarily as part of that update. But it can partner well with that. And, basically the action plan needs, or a resolution needs to establish the goals, timeline, and strategy of how to achieve that. And then, city council would adopt that. And then there would be policy changes that would need to come in to play, like adopting new land use code ordinances and, basically just shifting our mindset for the past however long. And so some of that is, we'll take a lot of work looking at our code comprehensively to see where our street design standards and even some of the residential land use standards mix into all that. And then implementing, so making improvements to the transportation network, which, the city has been great at doing capital improvement projects with multimodal funds out of the 2015 half cent. So basically just continuing that, but in a very prioritized way that is based off of like a framework, which again, the multimodal transportation plan does have. So we do have some elements that are kind of lined up to make this successful, if that is a way you all would pursue.
Thank you for the presentation. As a reminder, this is informational only. We can ask some minor questions, but if council wants to move forward or do anything additional, it would come under new business. So, questions?
No questions, but I just want to say thank you so much for giving us a breakdown of Vision Zero and kind of helping understand a little bit more about what the program is and what potential next steps could be if we decide as a body to do so. So thanks so much for the effort.
Great, thank you.
All right, next up, item 5, city manager updates, information only again. 5.1 Midtown Safety and Connectivity Project Update submitted by Transportation. Oh, look who's back.
Forgot that was right up next. City staff, Devin King, before you all again. So, when we had come before City Council a while back, providing an update on the Midtown Safety and Connectivity Improvement Design, we said we would bring it back. And so we recently had a public meeting for the 60% design. So that's where we are in the phase. So that is what I'm providing an update on this evening. So I'll go through an overview that will include the city plans, the background and engagement of the project. Some of this you've all seen before, but it's been a while. So I just wanted to make sure you remember it. And then the project design, the 60% design, which you all have not seen yet. And then design progress, which, the various feedback we've received and project changes moving forward. So real quick, I'll give a brief summary of the design, which the graphic on your screen shows it. It is I was trying to fit it all onto one slide for you. But what we're looking at is pedestrian and cycle connectivity and safety improvements along 15th, 14th, and 13th Street, East 2nd Avenue corridor. And then we were also taking a look at the 4E to 15th and 3rd intersection. So there were multiple city plans and programs that have occurred throughout the years that, really take a look at or call out the area that we now call Midtown. And for clarification's sake, underneath this, we do have Urban Renewal Authority. Their Midtown area is bigger than this, but the Midtown area that is part of this project is within their that scope for the redevelopment area. So along the 2016 multimodal transportation plan, it called out specifically this area for improvement as well as the 4E to 15th and 3rd intersection. And then it does fall under the city council strategic goals. So the project started with a traffic study, which we worked in tandem with CDOT on. And so some of you may have heard that a certain project at the 14th and Main intersection started yesterday. And that project was the CDOT has what's called an access control plan. And so that project is associated with Midtown because of how all the intersections interrelate. And so we did take a look at that as part of the traffic study. However, what CDOT is currently doing is somewhat separate of the Midtown project because it is part of their access control plan and the implementation of that. So in the traffic study, we evaluated 11 alternatives, including intersection options. The report is online. It's 400 something pages. We took a look at counts at all of the intersections where cars were going. And from that, we looked at turning some streets one way, which I will get into further in the design and what the impact is on that. And then we also took a look at intersection improvements, specifically for 15th, 3rd, and 4th intersection. We also took a look at intersection improvements for 14th and Main. And so out of that, the mini roundabout was the best for overall safety and improvement to the 4E to 15th and 3rd intersection now and into the future in 2041. So moving forward after the traffic study, then we started the conceptual design or the 30% design. And during that time, we proposed multiple alternatives for the East 2nd Avenue area, as well as the 4E intersection when we took it to the public. However, prior to that, we did meet with businesses to understand how their business functions, what their needs are, so that, ideally, when we come to the public, we've already heard some of their needs, and that's not like, so they don't see a plan. They're like, wait, y'all never came to me. You didn't ask what our needs were. So we did reach out to the businesses and some of the property owners initially before we even had those design plans. And then we took it to the public and got feedback. And then following that, we had a focus group last fall. And that focus group was specifically for the 4E to 15th and 3rd intersection, where we, basically just kind of presented it. Sometimes it's easier to present to a small group of people over a few days and really, so they can understand the full scope and magnitude of the project and all the little nuances that are associated with it. And so that's what that focus group really did. And we received feedback from that. And then that is how we ended up looking at the left turn at 14th. If any of you have seen that, which I'll highlight in a little bit later, but that's where that came from, was from the focus group. And then we got to the 60% design, which we had a meeting for that on July 10th this summer. And that was for the 60% plans. And it did include alternatives for the 4E to 15th 3rd intersection. It included 3 alternatives, which I will show in just a little bit. So engagement. Again, we've kind of talked about how we reached out to the business and property owners initially. And then after that, that's how we created the concept designs. And then we had an open house on May 23rd of 2023 for the conceptual designs. We had 52 attendees at that meeting. We started off with a presentation, then had question and answers, and then we broke out for the kind of open house style where people were walking around, looking at boards, putting stickers, etc. And then we've had additional meetings with businesses and property owners since then. Basically, if certain property owners and businesses pointed out, hey, I have this concern or this maybe doesn't work with how we have loading, etc. We met with them on site at their business so that we could kind of see and understand a little bit better. Farmers markets and pop-up engagement. By pop-up engagement, what we mean is we went to the Rotary Park and, basically talked to people using the trail. We know that a lot of folks bike and walk right up East 2nd Avenue right there. So we went out to kind of capture their comments to make sure that they were included. And then, of course, we had that focus group last fall for the intersection. And then the public meeting on July 10th, we had 38 attendees. We also had an online poll. So after we got done with the meeting, we had an online poll during the meeting, which we had, I think, about 20 responses. So we didn't get all the attendees. And then after that, we had an online poll for the 3 alternatives for the 4E intersection. And I'll get to the results of that in a little bit. So the need of this project, we do counts every 2 years out at these intersections listed here. And as you can see on the left-hand side of this graph is the East 2nd Avenue and 15th Street intersection. As you can see, it is our most popular intersection. 200 people within a 2-hour period are coming through here on cyclists and pedestrians and then going up 2nd Avenue. So we know that this is a very popular corridor for them. And that's why 15th, 14th, 3rd, and East 2nd Avenue are such an important piece for getting folks downtown. So it really is an entry point for folks that are coming on the Animas River Trail from the north and the 4E side path. So they're all kind of coming in that way. So the East 2nd Avenue corridor, I'll kind of go through. We broke basically the project into kind of like 2 components, the East 2nd Avenue corridor, which includes 15th, 14th, 13th, East 2nd Avenue, and then the 4E to 15th and 3rd intersection. So this section that I show you on the right shows some of the one-ways we are proposing. So we are proposing a one-way on 2nd Avenue. And the reason for that is it allows us to put in a 2-way cycle track. This is not something we currently have in Durango. However, it's very efficient and safe for cyclists. It separates them from pedestrians, but also separates them from motor vehicles. So it would be an actual curb separated 2-way cycle track, which is basically a 2-way bike lane heading up 2nd Avenue. And that's to create that connection from the Animas River Trail to what will future be the City Hall and then connect all the way, to 12th and into downtown. So what we're looking at is northbound from 13th to 14th Street would be northbound one-way, and then from 15th to 14th Street would be southbound one-way. And the other added value that gives us is we were able to maintain parking by doing that. We do know that parking is, definitely an amenity right here for a lot of these businesses that they value quite a bit for their business operations. Proposed sidewalk connectivity within the project. So there are missing sidewalks. One thing about this project is there are a lot of existing businesses. So when we go in and do kind of a rehabilitation project, we have to think about those existing businesses. We can't just put up sidewalk and make their business non-functional. So a lot of these businesses, unfortunately, we're not able to get sidewalk in every spot because of how those businesses operate. But what we did is we added more crossings and really made it a more pedestrian-friendly environment. So for example, on 15th Street, we put in right there on Main, a new crosswalk. It technically exists now, however, it's not painted. And we put in a pedestrian refuge island in there because we do know that it can be a little terrifying to cross that just because of views. We also put in a mid-block crossing because of the lack of connectivity on the 15th north side. And then on 14th Street as well, we enhanced that with some curb extensions there at the intersection to shorten those distances and provide extra protection and safety for pedestrians. And then we are making transit stop improvements to 14th Street where the Tamarron Square transit stop is. So right now, if you've been to that stop, it's at a pretty good angle. It's not very big. So we are making improvements to that transit stop as well. So now to the 4E to 15th third alternatives. As you can see, there were 3 of them. And alternative 1 was basically no intersection alignment changes. What we mean by that is the intersection would function as it does now. We can make small little adjustments, but anytime you close off and send traffic in a different direction or anything like that, you really have to take a look at that through a traffic study and analyze what impacts is that going to have. So for example, if all of a sudden, right now during construction, vehicles are going different directions and using different streets, low volume streets like local streets, if all of a sudden you pack those streets with a ton of cars, they weren't made to have a ton of cars. So safety gets decreased on those local streets. So we really have to think comprehensively anytime we make changes to an intersection. So the benefits of doing no alignment changes is low cost. There's not much that needs to be spent on it, fewer construction impacts, and no or little impacts to the historic boulevard. Disadvantages is that it doesn't really address the existing safety issues to the full extent that's necessary. It does not improve operational issues, and it does not perform well with future demand. So again, we use traffic modeling to determine the demand in 2041. Alternative 2 is a mini roundabout. Benefits, it improves safety. So for those that aren't fully versed in all the different elements of a roundabout, one of the benefits is it moves pedestrians where they cross out of the intersection essentially. So when a car pulls up to an intersection right now, there are multiple movements that they have to look. You look left, look right, look straight, and then also look at pedestrians crossing. That's a lot going on. Versus this kind of goes back to the Vision Zero design. So then if you pull up to a crosswalk or pull up to a mini roundabout, you pull up to the crosswalk first before you even have to look at traffic. And then once you do get to the mini roundabout, you only have to look left to see where cars are coming. So that's kind of the added safety benefit there. And it does improve expected level of service. What we mean by a level of service is basically how long somebody is sitting at that intersection. So traffic delays. It does have the best results for that. However, there are some disadvantages associated with it, which is high cost, approximately $3 million off the 60% design. Concerns with eastbound approach grades. So basically, as you're heading up 15th Street going to Florida eastbound, there's quite a bit of a hill there, so there's some grade challenges. Largest traffic impacts during construction. And we did present these to the Historic Preservation Board, and they did have concerns about impacts to the boulevard and the historic nature over there. Alternative 3 was a left turn out of 14th Street. Again, this came out of the focus group. We did originally look at this during the traffic study. However, it didn't perform that well in the traffic study, so that's why it was not really looked at. And then there were some concerns regarding the design. So out of the focus group, we did look at the design further and take that to a 60% level. So there are some improvements to safety at the intersection. Basically, those improvements are by taking a left turn out of it. It leaves only one left turn. So left turns are typically where a lot of crashes happen, especially at that intersection. It does create opportunities for additional improvements at 3rd and 15th. So basically by taking that, one of those left turns out, it does give the engineers a little bit opportunity to look at that intersection in a couple of different ways to make some other minor changes. And then it improves current operations. However, those current operations are improved, but at 2041, we still kind of hit issues with that intersection. So some disadvantages is it still has a high cost, 1.2 to 2.5 million. The reason why there's a range there is it depends on what other minor improvements we did at the actual 4E to 15th and 3rd intersection. It does remove up to 18 trees in the median between 13th and 14th. And those are pretty large trees out there. And they're actually American elms, which I was told are native. They're not the invasive Siberian elms. It also has impacts to on-street parking, grade and shadowing concerns. So there is about a 5-foot grade change between northbound 3rd and southbound 3rd. So it's quite a bit. And basically what we would have to do is angle that and then ensure that, you know, that area doesn't ice up and become another hazard basically for vehicles going down there. And then there was a strong negative reaction from the Historic Preservation Board when it was presented to them because of that large impact to the boulevard, which is historic. So I mentioned the poll that we did earlier that we put online. We ended up getting about 500 responses. And it was, you know, it was basically just a straw poll, like, you know, who is interested in which of these alternatives, and the mini roundabout had the highest percentage points, I don't think that's accurate, but had the highest percentage of respondents that preferred that option. And then no intersection alignment changes. And then the last alternative was the left turn at 14th Street. So some design changes, basically from all this engagement and everything we've kind of heard from the community and been working on, our proposal for East 2nd Avenue corridor is to make minor changes to the cycle track based off of business feedback and working further with the property owners and businesses there. And then working on the 13th Street intersection configuration, we've been, you know, coordinating with the City Hall PD and just making sure that we're all thinking comprehensively about the improvements right there. So continue that conversation and design and basically get the East 2nd Avenue corridor, which again is 15th, 14th, 13th, and East 2nd Avenue to a get those to a final design level for construction drawings. And then for the 4E to 15th and 3rd intersection, you know, we're proposing to remove that from the project scope so that we can continue looking at that further from both an engineering level and from, you know, working with the surrounding property owners and community on that, and essentially create that as a separate project to move forward and evaluate. So moving forward, we will finalize the design with property owners. And again, this is the East 2nd Avenue corridor that we were talking about, and progress those plans to a 90% level. And then at that point, staff will review that again, make any final changes that are necessary, and then finalize the construction plans. And then we will start to allocate and look at funding opportunities for that area.
Excellent. Thank you for your presentation. Do we have any, again, this is information only. We can ask basic questions. If there's anything we want to change or we want to bring up, that comes up during new business. So any questions for Devin? Yeah.
Just to clarify, if you will, so you suggested that now that you have changed the scope to look at the East 2nd Avenue and remove the intersection of the 13th. the roundabout.
Correct, yeah,
Remove that from the scope at this time, is what you're suggesting?
Correct.
And you're looking at East 2nd Avenue only. And when you're looking at East 2nd Avenue, you're looking at East 2nd Avenue changes as you presented here,
Correct.
with one way and the other way.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
What was the kind of rationale for no access from 14th Street to be able to access something on East 2nd Avenue? Because I mean, the way the drawings look, it looks like you can only go to 160 from 14th. You can't access East 2nd Avenue because it's one ways each way, right? So you can't make a left and you can't make a right, correct? From 14th
Are you talking about from Third?
Because it looked like they were directional, right? East Second Avenue is
Correct, yeah,
directional one way.
northbound and southbound.
And then it's directional this way, and
Right.
14th goes this way. So you can't access East Second Avenue from 14th.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, so the rationale there was basically in the traffic study, we saw, because again, we coordinated this with CDOT, but what it showed is most people take a left-hand turn at 15th and not 14th. The numbers turning left at 14th were very low. So when we looked at the traffic patterns and how people move through that area, there's not that, usually people come down 15th or they're coming, straight on Camino, which they'll still be able to do if they want to access like where AutoZone and Stillwater and all Jimmy John's, all that is. And then most people leaving that are then coming out, they're either going up to Third or they're coming straight out at the intersection of 14th and Main, either making a right to go up Main or they're going straight to Camino. So basically the traffic study kind of helped analyze how people currently move through that. And we did take a look at, well, what does that impact? How much roundabout is that going to make for folks? And it was pretty minimal on how people move through that area already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. It makes sense to move along with, keep going with this and moving forward and progress, and then keep evaluating that intersection. So I appreciate it, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, item 6, committee, board, and liaison reports. Councilor Woodruff, you want to start? us off?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's as we do. I had my community office hours yesterday, and we talked about 5 or 6 different folks and had some really good conversation. We talked about Malfunction Junction, youth engagement, Head Start, downtown's next steps, greenhouse gas emission goals, warming shelters, the whole thing. So it was really good to have some of those conversations with the community. I was also present. It sounds like most of us were there for the downtown's next step forum well, I guess whatever the 27th was, I can't remember what day of the week that was, but just want to say thanks to the Chamber, Bid and Local First for really putting that on and having some good conversation and good information out there that's accurate and timely. So whatever decision we make is based upon good information. So yeah, super stoked to be a part of that. I took a ton of notes. I got like 5 pages of notes that were from that conversation. So it was really good to hear public sentiment and feedback. We had our cast meeting last week, and so that was really good to attend. Sarah knocked it out of the park. Thank you, Sarah, for making us all look good from the micro transit side and everything else that you do. But micro transit is what we just spoke to specifically. But and Chief Current, thank you for your presentation on the core system, the core program. It was really good to have all of those like-minded and similar municipalities see what we're doing and how we're addressing some of our issues and how we can all kind of collectively address some of these similar issues. So it was really good to be a part of that. I was able to get into a bike ride with some Durango residents, Rick Cobb and Seth Fertney. We rode around Three Springs and talked about everything from future parks, Smart 160, and how we're seeing Three Springs and Grandview grow and develop. So yeah, busy week.
Hello, everybody. Likewise, I went to the CAST meeting on August 22nd, and I did enjoy the presentations, and I learned more about Colorado small town ski resort doings. But it was really interesting talking to some of the people and seeing how Durango compares to smaller towns. And we're actually doing very well. And then I also went to the Next Steps Downtown Forum on August 27th from 8 to 10. And I thought that our staff did a very good presentation about where we're at with that program. So that was very informative. And then also on the 29th, I went to the CLM Colorado Municipal League training for governments in Colorado. And so I learned a lot about, well, the most interesting session was about executive sessions and what can be done and some other details about how to protect ourselves. So I'll leave it at that. But I also had a chance to meet with some more other counties that came, you know, like people from Montrose and Cortez. So, you know, these region-wide meetings are very beneficial to the council because we get a chance to see what other districts are doing and make comparisons to how well Durango's doing. So that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, I since the last council meeting, I also had cancel hours, but 2 weeks ago, and same had a lot of great conversations. In addition to what you brought up, I also had a conversation. It is minimum wage. There's a group of people that are looking at trying to get minimum wage increased in Durango. It's called Durango Forward Minimum Wage Talk, and they're doing a talk on the 16th at Bookcase and Barber at 5 p.m. So if anyone's interested in that. In addition to CAST, like they've already talked about, and the Next Steps Forum, Senator Hickenlooper was in town. Him and I and Councilor Woodruff did a tour of the Durango residences, which congressional spending helped us really, you know, move the needle on that and get that going. It's amazing. There's going to be 128 30 to 60% AMI units opening up. I think we have the first phase opening up in November and then the second phase in March. So that is a super exciting, amazing project that congressional spending helped. And then after that, I went with Senator Hickenlooper to a roundtable discussion with a bunch of different people in the region talking about affordable housing and what we need from our state representatives to help us really move the needle to get affordable housing more of a priority here in Durango and La Plata County. So that was great. I think that was all I had this last round. I also have a mayor walk and roll coming up on the 18th of September in Rusa, the Rusa community. So that'll be fun. Walking around with community members. So yeah, come and join for that. All right, next up we have item 7, public comment on agenda items only. Can I have the video? All right.
So we have several people signed up again under public comment on agenda items only. These may be items that you have previously talked about would fall under the later version. The first one up under this public comment section is Andrew Allport.
Are you here for the? There was just confusion. Do you
Yeah.
want to can we move them to,
I can call them again later. Sure.
is that okay if we move you to? Oh, okay. What's hard is there's a lot of people here for lots of different items that aren't on the agenda. So if I make an exception for this, I would have to make an exception for everyone, and we really need to get through the business at hand. But can you send an email or to city council? Anyone who doesn't want to stay, I totally understand. citycouncil@durangoco.gov. Shoot us an email with your comments would be great. And then look to the end of the meeting for new business to be brought up potentially by council. Thank you. Okay, great.
Next would be Jim Foster.
Do you want to move to the later part for Midtown, the later public comment? Yeah, so it would be at the next agenda item for the Midtown comments. Yes. So the next agenda, we can have you called at the next public comment under non-agenda items. It's not, there's no action on it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Next would be Jackson Clark.
My name is Jackson Clark. I'm a property and business owner in Durango, downtown Durango, and I just want to share a story. There's a grandpa, he's out to use the outhouse, right? And after he's finished his business, he gets up and he accidentally drops a nickel down the outhouse. He looks at it for a minute, reaches in his pocket, pulls out a dime, throws the dime down there. Waits a few minutes more, reaches in his pocket, pulls out a quarter, throws a quarter down there. Shakes his head, puts his hand in his pocket, pulls out a 50-cent piece and throws it down there. Then he pulls out his wallet and he throws $1 down there. Reaches for his wallet and he pulls out a 5. And his grandson, who is watching from the outside, says, "Granddad, what are you doing? What in the world are you doing?" And he said, "I'm not going down there for a nickel." And I think your idea to postpone the action on this next step until after the high school project is really, really good. What I question is continuing the engineering study, because this project will likely never come into fruition, or it will be an entirely different project than it's envisioned as right now. So I really think if you're going to continue with that engineering project, you're just putting money down the outhouse. Thank you.
Thank you. So as a next steps comments are not on the agenda for action items today. And sorry, you told the story and I didn't follow, like, which is great. But I didn't want to interrupt at the very end. So next steps is at the end of the next council item.
Right. And our
public
instructions
comment.
do require that you state which agenda item you intend to speak on,
Okay.
which will be greatly helpful to the chair.
To me.
So, yes,
So
if
when you
go up-
come up, tell me what agenda item you're going to speak on and I can help too, if it's something that to put you somewhere else. Okay, great. Sorry.
Next would be Sharon Taylor.
Okay.
After that, we have Sweetie Marbury.
Sweetie's here.
Oh, you too? Yes, your handiwork is here. My name is Sweetie Marbury, and I'm a city resident, and I came to speak on the procedures that city manager and the attorney are putting on the agenda. First of all, again, I'm going to urge you to remove the 18th month, blah, blah, blah. I find it very unnecessary as a former mayor. If you are having problems with a city councilor, then you need to take care of it. But by putting the 18 months in, you are hamstringing future city councils. And I just don't see the point. I've talked about it with other mayors, and yes, there have been some issues with city councilors, but it doesn't mean that you create more rules like for naughty school children. But one thing I do want to talk to you about are the emails. I didn't see that in your procedures. And emails are where city councilors get into trouble with ethics. Every city councilor is supposed to CC everybody in this at this dais to keep yourself safe from any ethics charges. So I think that you should have in your procedures that city councilors should be reminded that when they send out an email, it's not to one individual. It is CC'd every city council, the city attorney, the city manager, and any directors of departments that come into play. That way you have it on record and it's not just, oh, I didn't realize that. Because that is an ethics charge, I do believe, and that keeps you out of trouble. So I'm also encouraging you to move public participation sooner, because now all these people are sitting here through lots of other agenda items, and you're lucky you don't have a lot of developments on the program or fence issues or disputes. And these people came and they got here at 5:30 and they're going to sit for about 2 hours or so. You heard former Mayor White say the same thing 2 weeks ago. Your comments can go at the end of the meeting, as when Councilor Youssef and I were on city council, we moved those to the end. So staff didn't sit here all night and the public didn't sit here all night. And I think that's just courtesy that city council can show. So I don't agree with number 13 being way at the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're not trying to heat everyone out. I think our AC is broken, so we apologize. I'm hot up here too. Next up,
Next is Doug Mason.
I know, sweating. Doug. Yeah. The end, what is your topic? Yeah, the next steps. Yeah, that's at the next one. Well, we can just pull these people back up. Are you okay, you're holding them. Thanks, Faye.
I am.
Yeah,
The next up would be Antonia Clark.
next steps. Yeah.
Okay, Karen Anisi.
What,
After you decided what you were going to say, but
what agenda? No, I made this comment in the very beginning of the meeting too.
no, not you.
Oh,
I'm talking about me.
sorry. Do you,
I won't speak until I'm ready to
you're
go.
good. What topic?
I'm going to talk about the Midtown connectivity because there was items presented that I think it's probably important
So
to.
real quick, so
address.
just like I said in the very beginning of the meeting, Midtown connectivity, there is no action items. It was only information. If a counselor wants to bring it up under new business, we can bring it up under new business, and then it would be on an agenda for us to make decisions at a future meeting.
And so
and
even
so-
if there were statements made that were
Yeah, it was
false,
just informational only. So you have, because we're not making any decisions on it today, it's at under non-agenda items.
then I'll stick around to the end of the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Karen.
Joe Hanaran. Sorry if I butchered that last name.
Joe? Any Joe? No, no Joe.
And Karen Johnson is the last one.
Karen? Next steps, okay. Thank you. All right, next item, thank you. Melissa, moving on. All right, item number 8, consent agenda. Can we have a reading? Oh,
Mayor, hold on one second. Item
sorry.
12.1,
Uh-huh.
that's an agenda item, it's not a public hearing. It's just the first consideration of ordinance, so the ones that are signed up under 12.1.
First considerations are the actual public hearings.
But they're not public hearings, it's already put on. So 12.1 needs to be called up for those that have a public comment.
I
It's
thought
not a-
12 was actually the actual public hearings on
It's
those.
not a public
Okay.
hearing, it's the first introduction of an ordinance where we use public comments.
Okay. So I think we have 2 others then.
you're great, no big deal. Back to item 7.
I have Martha Evers signed up to talk about 12.1.
Okay, excellent. Martha? She's not here? Oh, is she online? Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
Did you call me?
Martha? No, Emmy. That's Emmy. Yes. Is she online? Is there anyone online? Martha Evers?
I don't see anyone online named Martha Evers, Mayor.
Okay. So next one.
Mary Finley.
All right. Hi, this is super intimidating. So my name is Mary Finley. People call me Emmy, and I live at 404 East Park Avenue. So I just like to express support and excitement for the new Head Start development. So I'm speaking about agenda item 12.1 on track C. I would also like to really encourage the city to prioritize making a parking and traffic flow plan for this new development. So I wanted to start by just really quickly reading from a letter from Craig Rawson, written for Greg Hoch, Director of the Planning and Development of the city of Durango some time ago. This was dated October 2011, in response to concerns from the head of the East Fastbinder Center Condominium Owners Association. In quotes, he says, "The staff does not disagree with you that the proposed sale of the entire lot," speaking about Tract C, "would be problematic and could pose legal problems if the city did not recognize that the majority of Lot C was committed for parking for existing uses within the plan, PD, planning development document. The only way Lot C could be sold or leased in its entirety would be if required parking was accommodated in some other way." So I'm absolutely not saying, let's not do Head Start, but I am saying, let's talk parking. Ugh, boring, right? But really important. So just really briefly, I know you're all aware, there was a Mercy plan development plan adopted as a legal document in 2007. They have an existing contract for 135 parking spaces between the two medical buildings, and then Tract C and Tract F, and then 352 parking spots if you include the library. In Tract C, there's 91 spaces, 51 of which are part of that PD agreement, and 40 are overflow. And we just, as a neighborhood, have not really seen any parking talks yet. The only thing we have is that kind of rendering, which showed a lot of that being taken up by street parking and alley parking. And so that street parking is really important. There's a lot of people using the library and using the trails, and it's already, and I will try and photo document some of this in the next few weeks, but it's really full most of the time already. And then if we do the alley parking, that's going to really expose the East Second Block residents to a lot of congestion, noise, and pollution that an appropriate parking plan would not expose them to. We have asked for a parking plan, haven't seen anything yet. We've also asked to see the proposal that's under consideration by Reynolds and Ash, and we haven't been able to see that yet, which seems like maybe we should be by this time. So just wanted to really ask that there does seem to be a little bit of a precedent with allowing development without good parking plans, not by this council, but by previous councils. Just asking this council to do better, keep your legal agreements, and improve the performance of the previous councils by providing a comprehensive parking plan. And again, keeping the agreements of that 2007 Mercy plan development. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that concludes the list.
Okay, great. Now on to item 8, the consent agenda. Can I have a reading of the consent agenda?
8.1 is approval of minutes. Those are the minutes of the August 20th, 2024 City Council regular meeting. There are no final reading of ordinances. Adoption of resolution by consent is a modification of Resolution R 2024-0044, which would place a ballot item on the April 25 regular election. There are no items under 8.4, 8.5, or 8.6, and under 8.7 for request for excused absences. Councilor Bosman's had requested an excused absence for both council meetings on today's schedule.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
Council discussion? Can I have a vote?
Councilor Youssef,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
yes.
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
Councilor Woodruff.
Yes.
All right, item 9, items pulled from the consent agenda. We have 9.1, a motion to reconsider the final reading of ordinance O-2024-0013, establishing city council rules of procedure, requested by Councilor Youssef.
Yes. So there's two motions here. The first is just to reconsider. So I move to reconsider the ordinance 0-2024-0013, establishing city council rules of procedure.
Second?
Council discussion? Can I have a vote?
Councilor Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
No.
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
and Councilor Youssef.
Yes.
And then 9.2, final reading of ordinance O-2024-0013, establishing city council rules of procedure, submitted by the city manager's office and city attorney's office.
So I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance with the amendment of removing the time frame on reconsideration of items.
I'll second. Council discussion?
So
Oh,
can I
thank
just
you.
make, I need to ask a clarification question. You said remove the time frame. There's one paragraph that deals with reconsideration. Is the intent to just remove the time frame and leave it blank, or remove the whole paragraph?
Let's remove the 18-month consideration, that time frame of 18 months. So whatever we need to remove to have that deleted from that.
The whole
The
paragraph.
I
whole
think that would
paragraph.
include,
Right. I'm just saying remove it. Motion on the table is just to remove it. So take. the
and I'm
whole
sorry for
paragraph out.
interrupting, just so if there is a successful vote, it has to be clear. So it
Yep,
is that the
absolutely.
paragraph involving reconsideration of motions and that had the 18-month time period in it is removed in its entirety.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And so now we're at discussion.
Yes, council discussion.
And I just think that the other items on the rules and procedures, I think are really important. I think if council wants to address this at a later time, so be it. But it seems to me that there are different avenues for us to deal with any issues around reconsideration of items. And I think that given the nature of it, I think that's just best to remove it and move forward. My thoughts.
My sentiments exactly. And I do think that codifying the rules and regulations that we've been abiding to the last several months is a very good idea. And thank you for clarifying that for council.
I'll just reiterate too, I know that council rules and procedures has been attempting to kind of get on the docket and formalize things since before my time on council. Was back when Dean and Chris and you and Kim and Barbara were on council, and nothing ever got approved. And when we hired Mark Morgan, that was one of the things we kind of pushed for in the very beginning, was to kind of get these rules like lined out. So we just had something governing us in a more formal way. And so I appreciate the effort and going forward, and I appreciate, the feedback of the 18 months, and, and if it becomes a problem, maybe we can revisit it. But right now it seems like we're moving along fine. So thank you. Okay, can I get a vote?
Do you want me to address the public comment that was made on it about the emails?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, as to the comment that was made publicly about including rules on emails, that I appreciate the comment, and it's certainly something that I thought about to benefit the council, but it gets very, very complicated because of the open meetings laws. Anytime a counselor sends an email and copies everyone else on that email, some people would challenge that as being an unannounced or unadvertised meeting of the city council. Those type of emails tend to invite responses. And once that happens, there's court cases out there that say that you are now conducting a meeting in violation of the Colorado open meeting laws. So I appreciate the suggestion. We did look at it, but it's just not truly feasible under the OML.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
Yes.
Counselor Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
and Mayor Buell.
Yes. All right, item 11, resolutions. Item 11.1, resolution to adopt Indigenous land acknowledgement and short-term and midterm action plan submitted by the DEIB cross-functional team. Kyle.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Kyle Delamora, DEIB Staff Liaison. Before you tonight to provide the final language on an Indigenous land acknowledgement and our recommendation on uses for consideration of adoption by resolution. So this effort aligns with our strategic plan goals of organizational stewardship and engaged and informed community, both in our efforts to foster strong community group partnerships and from utilizing a systematic approach of community engagement and outreach that was utilized to get us here. Quick reminder on the reason why the city should engage in ILAs. They bring broader public awareness to a community's historical context. It provides an opportunity to show recognition and respect to the original stewards of the land. The action plan we propose will foster collaboration and ongoing action and partnerships with residents, visitors, and tribal communities. This work began at the beginning of 2023 with council direction, and the team utilized the City of Durango's community engagement strategy to do outreach with area tribes and formed a focus group made up of tribal members. So this is a snapshot of our engagement strategy with the project. It began with our initial outreach to the indigenous tribes identified as having ties to the region. This spurred conversations and feedback on the project as a whole and helped shape the first draft of the ILA. Next, we reached out to residents requesting their participation in a focus group. Once that was formed, this group of 7 met twice, led by the city's community engagement specialists, in order to provide feedback on the ILA and the action. This is the land acknowledgement, and I'll go ahead and read that. This is a call to honor and respect Indigenous sovereignty and self-determination. As residents and visitors of Durango, we're called upon to educate ourselves about the history and cultural heritage of the land we inhabit. The city of Durango is situated on the ancestral homelands and territories of the Nuchu, Ute, Jicarilla Apache, Pueblos of New Mexico, Hopi Sinome, Hopi, and Dene Navajo nations. The original stewards of this land were forcibly removed and exposed to countless atrocities by the United States government, including repeatedly broken treaties, forced assimilation, the tragic legacy of Indian boarding schools, and the loss of ancestral homelands. We recognize lasting generational trauma exists within Native communities today. We affirm the continued importance of ancestral sites to descendant communities as integral to the living cultural landscape. This acknowledgement only becomes meaningful when combined with accountable relationships and informed actions. May this serve as a step towards inclusion and reconciliation. All right, so we have our short-term recommendations, and this we envision would be in the first 0 to 6 months of the action plan. We'd like this to be read aloud to start council meetings, engage Durango forums, and project-specific public engagement meetings. We'd like this printed on key City of Durango publications, including the Parks and Rec Enrichment Guide, Ignite Horse Brochure, meeting agendas, slides, the library catalog, and the employee handbook. We'd like this added to the website footer along with a webpage dedicated to the ILA information and resources, added to cultural displays at the Durango La Plata County Airport, and featured on Linktree and the city's social media bios. For our midterm recommendations, we see these in 6 months to a year. Signs with the ILA in community rooms, public spaces, and in-town trailheads. Recognition of Indigenous holidays specific to tribes in the region, and we envision this being in form of a media release by video that could talk about leaders of local tribes, bringing awareness to issues affecting tribal communities, and spotlighting events that are happening in these Indigenous communities. Integrate Indigenous history and current events into onboarding process for city staff. And then just in general, to stay open to feedback and reevaluate the plan after 1 year. This is our recommended motion.
Excellent. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve resolution R 2024-0052, adopting the Indigenous land acknowledgement and the short-term and midterm action plan.
I'll second.
Great. Council discussion. Anything?
Nothing. I'm just going to reiterate again, like, man, thank you so much for putting in so much work. I mean, when we were elected, gosh, just, April of last year, this was, something that has been a long time working on, and to get the stakeholder engagement that you guys have done. Just really appreciate all the work and the outreach that was done to get us to where we're at. And I look forward to seeing how not only short-term, but midterm and long-term, how we're going to better implement and provide strategies of how to be inclusive and provide more reconciliation. So thank you for all the work.
Ditto. Can I have a vote?
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
Yes.
Counselor Youssef.
Yes.
All right. 11.2, a resolution authorizing the execution of a deed of trust for the benefit of Alpine Bank to secure a new loan in favor of the Durango Arts Center from the city attorney.
The Arts Center leadership contacted my office recently, explaining that they had obtained a $600,000 loan to do deferred maintenance at the building over there. But because the city has a 30-year-old paper interest in the building, the bank required that this resolution be passed to give that money to them. It does not obligate the city to pay any of the money. The only obligor on the $600,000 is the Durango Arts Center. So this is just allowing them to get, and they needed it timely because their contractor was ready to start, and everyone knows how difficult it is to get contractors in the city of Durango. So this is just the paperwork to get them their loan, which does not obligate the city.
Excellent. Do I have a motion?
I move to authorize the execution of a deed of trust for the benefit of Alpine Bank to secure a new loan in favor of the Durango Arts Center.
I'll second.
Council discussion?
So I know this isn't financially obligated to the city. So what is our ownership interest in the DAC building?
So I don't have the exact details on that. It was done about 30 years ago. The city manager knows a little bit about it, but essentially what happened was that the building was sold to them for a very discounted below market price. And to make sure that we were made whole at some point and met all public policy, there is a clause in there that if the building's sold or at some point they have to buy us out, but that's on a scheduled depreciation. So at some point, for a lot of legal reasons, we would like them to have full ownership of that building, and that's what we're working towards. But part of that is getting this financing in place so they can do that deferred maintenance. I'd also say that this is not the first time this has been done. We did go back and look, and the exact same document for a different amount of money was done several years ago, again, to pay for maintenance at that building.
Great.
Jose may have something to add.
No, you hit it on the head, Mark, on that one. There's a formula at the end that if they were ever to buy us out, it takes depreciation value and that part into it. So yeah, we're an owner, I guess, kind of in paper whenever they're ready to ability to purchase the building on their own. They just haven't had the ability to do so yet.
Thanks.
Excellent. Anyone else? All right, roll call.
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie.
Yes.
All right, item 12, first consideration of ordinances. 12.1, first consideration of an ordinance authorizing the leasing of a city-owned property located at 1917 East Third Avenue to Head Start Durango 4-C Council Tri-County Head Start Program submitted by Community Development. Hi, we have Lily.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. Lily Oswald with the Community Development Department, and I'm here with Lisa Stone with Head Start, who I'll introduce in a few slides. Grab the clicker. I'm here to present for the first consideration as stated of an ordinance authorizing the leasing of the city-owned property at 1917 East Third Avenue. This is in alignment with the strategic plan goal of innovative housing and economic development, specifically for innovative partnerships in the public and private sectors. And trying to get my bearings. This is the 1917, not a very good circle, but East Third Avenue lot there that we'll be discussing today, the existing parking lot. I briefly, but hopefully somewhat thoroughly, want to also review the RFQ process background and why we're looking at this lease here today. There was a request for letters of interest and qualifications, or that RFQ, issued by the city's purchasing department in February of this year. That solicited 3 bids received to the city in April at the end of that window. These 3 bids were evaluated and interviews were held throughout May. And then that led to a bid selection and a notice of intent to award to a team consisting of Reynolds Ash and Associates as architects, Tri-County Head Start as a partner, as well as the Agave Group as a developer. At that point, city staff held some conceptual meetings with that project team and was able to then communicate this bid selection process and have some other community outreach conducted at that point. That was from that point in May through really present now, but through August when we had some meetings. Those community outreach events and from those other emails received and things like that resulted in pretty significant feedback from the neighborhood and the community about the initial concept, which involved both 1917 East Third Avenue and 2019 East Third Avenue, which is just to the north of there in the existing Head Start facility site. And as a result of that feedback and some other things involved with the RFQ process and the titling and everything else, the project team decided to separate that project component from each other. So formally withdrawing Tract F, which is the 2019 East Third Avenue site or Head Start current facility, and that was in August. And with that withdrawal of Tract F, a new and updated notice of award was issued for the childcare concept and that component solely in that expansion onto Tract C. That was also in August, which leads us here to this expansion. The first step being considering a lease with the city and Head Start on this 1917 tract. At that point, Head Start facility, Head Start organization may apply for grant funding, which would allow them to fulfill this development as proposed. And then design and development processes would follow, as well as additional community engagement efforts. It's important to note that this lease that you'll be considering tonight in no way approves or designates any sort of approval for design or development. It is just the first step for the leasing of this land to allow this application for grant funding. I will now introduce Lisa Stone with the Head Start program, and she'll go over the mission and program background.
Good evening. I am Lisa, and I'm the Executive Director for Tri-County Head Start. And I'd like to begin by thanking the City of Durango and the City Council for the opportunity to speak with you again about this project. We are very excited about the opportunity for a potential lease at 1917 East 3rd Avenue and the request for a 30-year lease. The 30-year lease is a requirement by the federal government, as they will be providing the Head Start funds for the new building, which is estimated at about $5 million. Head Start and early Head Start programs are administered by the Office of Head Start within the Administration for Children and Families. A lot of people don't know, but Head Start is a federally funded program that started in 1965 by Lyndon B. Johnson. And it was in response to the war on poverty. For the last 60 years, Head Start has served 38 million children annually. Since the 1970s, over 15,000 children have been served and supported through Tri-County Head Start in La Plata County, Montezuma County, and Archuleta County. The federal funding model for Head Start is an 80-20 model. The Office of Head Start provides 80% of the funds to provide a free early childhood program to families. The remaining 20% is provided by in-kind donations, contributions, and state funding sources. The reduced lease rate counts toward the match for funding. In La Plata County, which includes our Durango North Head Start, 90% of the families that we serve are at the poverty level or below. The other 10% that we serve have qualifying factors such as food insecurity, lack of reliable transportation, domestic violence, and 30% of our families are single-parent households. In July of 2022, I began first hearing about the possibility for funding for new Head Start facilities, which is very rare in the Head Start world. It's typically modulars that they have funded in the past. And at that time, we identified building needs for both Cortez and Durango due to aging facilities. At that time, we sent out RFPs to 8 architects, which were located in Durango and in Denver. 2 firms returned proposals. Reynolds and Ash was chosen due to being local and having previous child care center design experience. The Board of Directors for Tri-County Head Start approved the architect who has designed both new facilities in Durango and Cortez. The new design of the proposed building is based on best practices in early childhood and is first and foremost focused on safety and security. It is a single-story building with 5 classrooms and playgrounds. The classrooms have been designed for flexibility to either serve toddlers or preschoolers, which allows the center to serve the age group that's most in demand. The enrollment capacity of the new center may serve anywhere from 90 children to 60 children. For example, if there is a high need for preschool, the center can serve 90 children. If there's a community demand for toddlers and preschoolers, the center will serve around 60 children. A 6th classroom that is designated as a gross motor room during inclement weather, however, could be converted to a toddler classroom also. This flexible design will allow the center to serve children based on ever-changing community demands. Thank you.
There were a few items of clarification requested by Councilor Bosmans during the last meeting. So we tried to loop some of those into this presentation, a big one being parking. A few others, including, is this opportunity open for other childcare providers in the city and by Head Start? Of course, this was a public and open request for qualifications and letter of interest process. We didn't anticipate who would be submitting bids, and it resulted in Tri-County submitting a bid. It was open to any other childcare providing that sort of use on the city-owned property. However, this is the application we received for concept and what we've gotten council direction to move forward with. So that answers that one. Another one, and also brought up here tonight, about parking. Parking is a big topic of discussion across the city, across the nation, and it's also unique here. As mentioned, the Mercy Medical Planned Development includes these sites on this map in front of you, including the existing Tri-County Head Start facility on the northernmost property, the existing Tract C, which has the blue square there, the East Fastbinder Professional Complex to the south, the library, the parking lot adjacent to the library, and then to the north, that larger parking lot, as well as the Riverside Professional Complex. So those are all components of the Mercy Medical Plan development. When that agreement and that plat went into place and came before council and went through years of negotiations, a big part of that was a shared parking commitment. So it is correct in identifying that there is a shared total parking commitment, and those are defined within that Mercy Plan Development Agreement. The numbers in that agreement are 65 dedicated to that southern property, which is different condos for medical and office use. And then 105 for that northern professional complex, as well as parking to meet code requirements for the library, anticipating that parking code may change over time. Right now, that parking code, in our current land use code is 149. Among these total parking commitment numbers, that's 319 total committed parking spaces defined. Those need to be, also per the parking parts of this PD agreement, provided on the parking lot in front of the library, in the parking area between Tract C and the library, right, with the 174, on Tract C and or on Tract F here. As you can see, and as is provided here, there are a total of 337 spaces provided to be remaining as a result of this proposed concept. There's a decrease in what's existing on the Tract C, but it still meets and exceeds that parking commitment. And one of the reasons we were going through the process of looking at different parking options and other solutions was when Tract F was still part of that concept. And when we'd be potentially losing and forfeiting those 42 spaces to be for housing at that point. But now it is off the table. So we're not proposing any changes to the on-street parking, to restriping or anything like that of the current parking lots, because these parking numbers are met. And instead of stating that we've received public comment for this ordinance, which is true. There's been lots of public comment received for this ordinance process. We wanted to illustrate at least through about 2023 December through present, some of the public engagement opportunities that have happened, and then some quantified comments and meetings and things like that in there. I won't go through every single thing on this slide. It is incorporated into your packet, but this includes some city press releases, neighborhood meetings, city council public meetings, as well as publications and articles in the Durango Herald, and then emails to and from staff. Another one is it's emerging is the Connect Engage page, and when that went live in late June. As you can see, there have been a staccato of different engagement received and from staff. Another item I want to note on here is the request for qualifications live window of time. And during that window of time, city staff was not able to provide details on this RFQ or the bids received while this was live and open, which is also why you don't see press releases during that time or a lot of emails going out. And then once that window was closed, we were able to then communicate the bid selection and then go into our next steps, which we're seeing here. Some anticipated next steps and anticipated community engagement we're looking forward to. Of course, right now, City Council is considering this land lease agreement with Head Start and those terms. In later October, Community Development has been working with the city's community engagement specialist on providing a neighborhood meeting and hosting that on the Head Start facility design. We're hoping that's going to be productive and fun, and the more engagement type of meetings we've been looking forward to having, specific to parking and orientation and how it's accessed and things like that, and different considerations of different concepts, which will help make it hopefully work better with neighborhood involvement and feedback. Using that feedback that we'll receive during that meeting in October, Of course, some of these dates are dependent on the applicant and may shift, but these are the anticipated next steps. The applicant would be submitting for a special use permit. That's a process within our land use and development code. Childcare is an allowed special use within the Mercy Plan development, so they'll be applying for that special use permit, followed by a minor site plan application. Both of those are typically administrative processes, meaning city staff processes those, but in an effort to provide another opportunity at a public meeting to get some feedback and another eye for review, we are going to bring it to the Community Development Commission, likely in January, for an additional review of that site plan. They won't be taking action, but it's another opportunity for a public meeting there. That would be followed with all of those wrapped in reviews and comments and any sort of conditions into a building permit application submitted to the city and going from there. City charter requires certain acts to be provided by ordinance, including to convey or lease or authorize the conveyance or lease of any real property of the city, which is why this is coming before you. There is a provided recommended motion here. Staff also recommends after council considers the terms in the lease, including the amount, the length, and the start date, that any changes would be wrapped into that recommended motion for staff's continuance for any sort of final or second reading so that we can capture those changes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lily. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 2024-XX. What? Oh, blank, authorizing the leasing of city-owned property located at 1917 East Third Avenue to Head Start Durango 4C Council Tri-County Head Start Program.
I'll second.
Council discussion?
I just want to commend the CDC Community Department, I guess not CDC, but for recognizing, additional opportunities for public comment and, in the sake of, good partners. So appreciate all the work that you're doing to make sure that there's vested interest, people that have the opportunity to provide input. So thanks for that.
Yes, thank you. All right, can I have a vote?
There was one additional person that had signed up to speak on this item. I don't know if you'd like to do that now or if.
Yeah, we can, technically it was done up during public comment, but if should I take council vote? Can I make a motion to suspend the rules and take the additional comment out of order?
Second.
Council discussion? Can I have a roll call?
Counselor Youssef?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie?
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff?
Yes.
And Mayor Buell?
Yes.
That person is Heidi Perry.
You're good? Okay. Okay, great. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Okay, then roll call on the ordinance. Great.
Exactly. Counselor Youssef?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie?
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff?
Yes.
And Mayor Buell?
Yes. All right, 12.2, first consideration of an ordinance for an easement for the La Plata County to provide fiber utility service to the La Plata County Health Department at 185 Settle Street, submitted by Community Development.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Tyler Michael, Planner with Community Development. I am here this evening to present a proposal for a fiber utility easement at the La Plata County Public Health Department building at 185 Settle Street. The mission, vision, and values statements are there for your review. And again, purpose of this project is to consider an ordinance for an easement for La Plata County to provide fiber utility service to the La Plata County Health Department at 185 Settle Street. Staff has determined that this initiative is in alignment with the strategic plan goal for reliable infrastructure and community connectivity. Prepared some context maps just to see where 185 Settle Street is in Bodo. This is a site map prepared by the county. You can see the proposed utility easement there with the center line drawn in dashed red. And it will be connecting county-owned property on the west side to the county-owned property on the east, which again is the building that houses their public health department. From the county property on the west side, that big square of open space, the fiber line will run to the central data system at the county jail. This is the easement exhibit that was prepared by the county, including the easement description. And then a few points of overview that I wanted to touch on. This project will allow the county public health department to maintain their data security and communication security that is required by HIPAA standards. It will also benefit county and city residents who will be using the facility by providing faster and more reliable internet and communications. It will also allow emergency services to have an enhanced capacity for first response and for coordination during emergencies. Scalability, the 12-pair fiber tube that's being proposed here by the county, it accommodates for expansion of future technologies and increased data demands. And installing it now would lead to long-term savings, saving the county from any more frequent updates that would be associated with the older technology. And then there's been a long history of reciprocal value and partnership between the county and city information departments. And this would be another great opportunity to continue that partnership. The city could potentially in the future utilize the building at 185 Subtle Street as a fiber connectivity hub to enhance the city's own fiber connectivity and provision of faster internet. The timeline for this project, the introduction of the ordinance was on the consent agenda at the August 20th meeting. We have the first consideration here tonight, and if approved tonight, it will be on consent agenda for final consideration at the September 17th City Council meeting. To date, no advanced public comments have been received by Community Development Department, and staff has a recommended motion here on the slide.
Excellent, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the first consideration of an ordinance to create a fiber utility easement at 185 Subtle Street to serve the La Plata County Public Health Department.
I'll second.
Great, council discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Counselor Youssef,
Yes.
and Mayor Beal.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12.3, first consideration of an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17, offenses, Article 5, offenses relating to fraud, Section 17-76, obtaining goods, services, or money under false pretenses, September 4th, 2024, submitted by City Attorney.
Someone could move as read and get a second, and then I'll
Okay.
explain.
Motion.
So moved as read.
I'll second. Council discussion or?
Or I can give you an explanation. Mayor, there's a series of 4 ordinances on the agenda, which should go very, very quickly. Each of them are minor revisions to the code, updating just small things that need to be changed. As part of my job, as workload slows in the summer, I have the opportunity to go and look through the code and find errors and things that need to be updated. 2 of them have to deal with criminal provisions, and then 2 of them have to deal with business licenses and tardy tax delinquent people attempting to get licenses. The first one has to deal with, as you read, obtaining goods by false pretenses. We're trying to keep up with state law here. The amount that determines whether something is a felony or misdemeanor has gone up. That's changed several times in state law. However, it was never changed in our code. So this is very simply moving the amount from items less than $500 to items less than $1,000.
Great. Council discussion? Can I have a vote?
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Beal,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
Yes.
Counselor Youssef.
Yes.
Item 12.4, first consideration of an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17, offenses, Article 2, offenses relating to administration of justice and order, Section 17-26, possession or use of marijuana prohibited. Do I have a motion?
I move to amend the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17, offenses, Article 5, offenses relating to fraud. Nope. Article 2, Offenses relating to administration of justice and order, section 17-26, possession or use of marijuana prohibited.
I'll second.
Mayor,
Council.
This was a little bit more complicated. Our marijuana ordinance was, again, out of date. I thank the city clerk for bringing this to my attention. As marijuana was legalized in the state of Colorado, it still remained illegal on our books. So this updates it to conform with the most recent state law, and it sets a possession limit at 2 ounces. And then, of course, it prohibits possession by people under age 21, and of course, consumption in public.
Council discussion? Can I have a vote?
Counselor Youssef.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie.
Yes.
Mayor Buell.
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff.
Yes.
Item 12.5, first consideration of an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13 licenses and business regulations, Article 1, general business licenses, Section 13-4, denial. Submitted by city attorney. Do I have a motion?
Move to amend the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13, licenses and business regulations, Article 1, general business licenses, Section 13-4, denial.
Do I, council discussion?
If you'd like an explanation, this is, as I explained, this is a section of our code that did not include any prohibition for the issuance of a business license when unpaid and unremitted past due taxes had not been submitted to the city.
Council discussion? Can I get a vote?
Counselor Woodruff.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie.
Yes.
Mayor Buell.
Yes.
Counselor Youssef.
Yes.
And item 12.6, first consideration of an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13-13, licenses and business regulations, Article 1, general business licenses, Section 13-8, suspension and revocation. Do I have a motion?
Move to amend the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13, licenses and business regulations, Article 1, general business licenses, Section 13-8, suspension and revocation.
I'll second.
Mayor and council, the immediate past ordinance had to do with the renewal or the initial seeking of a license. This one is specific to the suspension or termination of a license during the license period. So licenses are generally issued for a year and then they're renewed. The first ordinance had to do with that initial license with the renewal. This has to do with someone who goes a period of several months without paying their taxes, gives the city manager the authority to suspend the business license. And again, this is for businesses who have collected sales tax or owe their sales taxes to the city and have not remitted those collected sales tax to the city. In the past, the clerk's office didn't have an option but to issue those sales licenses, those business licenses to them, even though they owe taxes. So this is just a clean up of that process.
Excellent. Council discussion? Can I have a vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie.
Yes.
Counselor Youssef.
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff.
Yes.
Mayor Buell.
Yes. All right, moving right along. Item 13, public comment on non-agenda items. Can I have the video?
We don't do it today. I have to go back and look.
Okay. That'd be good just to clarify that. So it's in arrears now. We get that. You know, because we still have one more day.
It's already in use. It's just not.
Oh.
Double check it. And then maybe- Election, 30 days.
All right.
So recalling some of the people from a while ago.
Yes,
The First
please.
one up would be Andrew Allport.
Did they stay? Andrew? No.
Nope.
Okay.
Next would be Jim Foster.
Jim, yes. Thank you for staying.
Good evening. My name is Jim Foster. I've been a resident for 32 years in Durango. I was glad to hear that the roundabout proposition is being segregated from the Midtown process because it gives us more time and opportunity to look at alternatives. There are alternatives. Some are much less costly. Some may even be safer. But in any event, there's now some time to take a look at some of that. I'm going to go back to 2012 for a moment when the present malfunction junction was created. At the time, I was a little worried about the layout that they showed us, but I was assured by staff there would be absolutely no adverse impact on my property or my access to the property, none whatsoever. And then partway through the project, they decided they had to lower the street a couple of feet. And with it went the driveway of 87 years, totally. The driveway was wiped out right up to the property line. I tried to get them to, there was a patch left, and I asked them to pave that so that I would have a parking pad where I could get off street at least and at an angle get a vehicle in there. And that was refused over a period of months. Finally, I lawyered up and got the approval to pave that, which I did. Well, now we're faced with the roundabout, and we found out that the street is probably going to be lowered 3 or 4 feet. That wasn't disclosed at the July meeting, but I happened to talk to an SEH engineer and found out that that was going to happen. Well, if that happens, there are a lot of things that follow that, involving trees, utilities, all kinds of things. But most of all, it puts auto access to my property in jeopardy, either in part, and by in part, I mean substantially or totally. And totally means a very drastic devaluation of my home. And there are no two ways about that. I've talked to real estate people. They recognize that. In fact, right now, with the threat hanging over it, it's unsaleable property. But nevertheless, we have a little time now to take a look at that and see what some of the alternatives is. And yes, this is personally addressing me, but I'm not the only one in the neighborhood impacted by these plans. And I'm not sure at all that it's going to solve anything. In fact, we've seen in the DOT has said, you know, get that left-hand turn out of there and you don't have an F anymore. And that is, there are a lot of ways to go about accomplishing that. So I thank you for your time, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you. Next.
Next up, Sharon Taylor.
Hi, I'm Sharon Taylor, and I'm a merchant downtown. I'm here about next steps. Thank you for allowing me to speak. After the forum, 58% voted no. That was a ratio of 2 to 1 against next steps. Just with merchants and property owners, I believe that's called a majority. And please respect and listen to us more. Parking, we need it. Not pedlets that you have out right now. Were you downtown this weekend? We were packed. We had motorcycles lining the streets. There was cars on there, but they were parked in the yellow zones and the red zones. All due to lack of parking, as the pedlets were out there. Motorcycles are just like antique cars. They meant to be seen and showed off. Sidewalks were busy. This was a great sight. I wish if you didn't come down, you should have. I know it was loud. That's all right. That's what motorcycles are about. But it was a great sight. But at no time did I see a demand for wider sidewalks. People stood off to the side and socialized. I have pictures if you want to see them. Bringing people downtown to shop and have a good experience. That's what downtown was created to do. Then they come back and hopefully they spend money. That's our goal, right? We have Cowboy Gathering coming up, one of the oldest events in the country. People come from all over to view and participate in this event and have for years. They come back year after year. I hope you decide to remove these pedlets to help Cowboy Gathering create a wonderful event. This will also help the merchants by allowing more parking on on one of the last big shopping days in the town, okay, and events. Giving us parking back is just a start to showing the merchants that you're listening and caring. Cowboy Gathering is also having a social hour before the parade to try to bring back more locals back into downtown. Let's let the locals leave with a good feeling that they're welcome downtown again. That, being able to park downtown is a start. Let's come together and work together and get Durango united and grow rather than a divided community on so many issues. Work with us. Don't preach at us about this. Something to think on. We need improvements, not drastic ones, just simple ones. We need parking, restrooms, and infrastructure utilities. These are things downtown needs, things that the merchants and locals say and visitors want. Please listen and use common sense and unite. Make Durango great again, and we all win. Thank you.
Doug Mason.
Thanks for joining us.
My name is Doug Mason. I'm a current resident of Durango, and I was born and raised here. And I don't know the specific topic other than what she was following. Yeah. I meant like the topic. It's the bump out, whatever you fell out. Oh, thank you. Well, I just wanted to urge the city council to discuss and disclose the quantitative and qualitative questions of change that would answer this issue of changing the Western heritage that I grew up in. And we used to have fun down on Main Street, believe me, into a bistro. And it would seem to me that this is a bistro opportunity, and the majority of my friends and associates definitely say no to the bistro. Additionally, I'd like for the councilman to consider the weather that would include the wind and the snow. It hasn't snowed here very much recently, but it could change. And when you get 4 or 5 foot of snow downtown, it's going to be interesting. Let's just put it that way. And of course, this all stems around parking. Durango is past due for parking, but the city council needs to think vertical, not horizontal, not to these different parking lots that, you can add additional 25 spots. I spent many a day on the 35th floor of a high rise in downtown Denver, and there's parking spots that are 4 and 5 stories high that work perfect. It doesn't seem to me that it's appropriate for our tax dollars to supplement restaurants when in fact it limits access to other businesses. When the restaurants were in business, they knew their exact lease footage, and to enhance that through my tax dollars, in my opinion, is not appropriate. That's it. Okay.
Next up is Antonia Clark.
Hi, my name is Antonia Clark. I own property at Towatin Gallery. I appreciate the fact that all of you attended the Next Step Forum last week. I think it was pretty clear that Durango's business community does not support this plan. 58% opposed, another 9% somewhat opposed. That's a landslide. And I'm glad that you are considering setting this program aside for the time being. There's a lot more that needs to be discussed, and it's really a bad idea. We've been saying all along that the business community has had no voice and no choice when it came to this project. We thank the entities that gave us a voice last week, and I hope that you heard us. This project was flawed in many ways from the very beginning. Both business owners and property owners and county residents were excluded from the conversation, the early conversations, And as I mentioned last week, after the early conversations, nothing changed with the very few exception of a couple things. I was told early on by a council member that this was a city project, not a county project. But please don't overlook the fact that county residents are our property owners, our employers, our employees, and they used to be our customers before parking became such a hassle. This has happened over many years and it will take many years to fix. But as business owners, we want those customers back. Tourism is important to our economy, but to overlook and disregard 30,000 county residents that live outside the city is really short-sighted. Who ignores instead of cultivates 30,000 potential customers? What would bring them back? Serve our employee base and accommodate our visitors, convenient, affordable parking. As you have heard over the last several weeks, parking for employees and customers is the CBD's biggest concern. It's what you need to focus on. Please quit kicking this can down the road and be the council that finally attacks this problem in a productive way. A shopping district without adequate parking cannot prosper. The neighborhood should not have to shoulder the weight of the city's years of inaction. It is not fair and it is not sustainable. The huge new hotel project at the end of 2nd Avenue will provide parking for 50% occupancy. Where will the rest of the visitors park? In the neighborhoods, of course. Your staff seems incredibly adept at securing grants, and I hope their focus now becomes parking. At least 2 consultants have concluded that we need a parking garage. Why ignore their analysis? Please vote to set next steps aside, discontinue further funding, pursue funding for a viable parking solution, address the needed infrastructure without redesign of downtown. The expensive new pedlets that fill the parking spaces and serve no purpose, except maybe a smoking lounge, are useless and should be taken down. That should be apparent to all of us. In closing, I'd like to acknowledge Karen Gabaldon, who died this week. She was an amazing member of our community. She loved historic Durango as much as anyone and has never stopped fighting for it. It is neighbors like her and business people like her who inspire the rest of us. They support each other, and that's what makes Durango unique and special. And I just want to acknowledge what an amazing person Karen was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Karen Anisi.
You didn't mess up. It was confusing.
I do
Sorry.
have a question. If I'm going to speak on 2 items, do I have to combine them into one, or do I get 6 minutes, or? 1 3-minute. Okay, I'll just revise my comments, but that's great. Can I tell a story like Jackson did?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a story because I've been here almost 50 years, and I'm thinking about when we had the sign code. And I don't know if you remember the sign code. I don't know if you remember the adoption of the first land use and development bill, LUDC. It was a contentious time. But you know, one of the things that I really miss is that even though there were opponents, it was a collaborative process. And I think what I'm seeing now is any opportunity for a collaborative process has been squandered. And in part, it's squandered because sometimes information isn't disclosed, information that might not fit the narrative. I think Mr. Foster spoke to some of the stuff that was only included after the presentation was over. While there was lots of talk about alternatives, one of the things that was left out is that the roundabout was a temporary, and SEH, who appears to be backing off promoting this, SEH said this is temporary. This is very temporary. The traffic study that has been mentioned, within that traffic study, and I took it to a civil engineer, there's a $3,000 solution versus a $3 million solution. When we talk about trees being lost on 14th, that's really sad and nobody wants to see that happen. But what about, that's 14, 18, what about the 26 that are in the path of the roundabout? What about the fact that when you lower the road 3 to 4 feet and nobody hears about that in the presentation, nobody hears about it? What about that? Should that not have been disclosed? So what I'm going to say with next step is this. Let's not continue to squander this collaborative process that now seems to disappear from any kind of city interactions. You know, I want to see there are good things about Next Step, but there's a lot of things that had they only been addressed early on, you wouldn't have the dumpster fire that you have right now. Thank you so much. I appreciate the 3 minutes.
Recalling Joe Hannaran.
Joe? Any Joe? No Joe.
Next is Karen Johnson.
My name's Karen Johnson and I own La Plata on Main. I also want to thank you all for showing up last week. It was impressive that all of the city councilors were there. At that meeting, we heard a lot about the possibilities and the trees and there were a lot of questions answered. I'm not sure that it has ever been said that it's all well and good for the restaurants to have extra space in front of their properties, and that there seems to be a lot of tax dollars being spent in order to do that. But as far as an apparel store or a gift shop or a jewelry store, I know I, as a mom and pop place, can't afford to hire extra people to put out on the sidewalk to protect the clothing and the gifts and the jewelry. And there's also weather concerns. Weather is not kind to clothing, gifts, and jewelry. So to have a bump out just does not make sense. And I just wanted that to be said. But I also wanted to bring up a point about a letter that was written by Sydney Zink. It was an opinion, and I know you all have a lot of reading to do, but I just wanted it to be heard that she states that Durango has one of the few national registered Main Street historic districts in Colorado. That means preserving streetscape of the period between 1880 and 90s. I know the facades will be protected, and that was very well said at that meeting last week, but Main Street is Main Street, a street. And I believe that if Next Steps goes forward, it will ruin the Main Street historic district that we are designated. So I would appreciate you considering that as well. In closing, I would like to give my last 30 seconds to Karen for a life well lived. Thank you for sharing your gifts and for being kind and for contributing so much to our community. You will be forever missed.
Thank you.
Next is Linda Mannix.
Do we have Linda? No, I know. Oh, are you reading for Linda?
I'm Linda's proxy. She had to leave because public participation comes so late. She has chores to do on her place. She's speaking about next steps. If funding is on hold for now, remove the temporary pedlets now. The fall is a busy tourist season with older people who want to park close to shopping. Also, there's so many fall events which bring people downtown. Pedlets should be removed before the cowboy gathering and the horse parade. The city will gain meter revenues from extra parking that would be made available without the pedlets. Thank you very much.
And Sweetie had signed up twice. I don't know how you want to.
I have to take a minute. Karen was a sweet friend to the city of Durango. Can't even see what I wrote. My name is Sweetie Marbury, and I'm a city resident. I'm speaking on two issues. The first is the Midtown. I can save you $3 million plus. Here's how I can save you $3 million. First of all, put a sign at 12th Street. That's a left-hand turn. And that's a cheap way to save money. You turn on 12th and you wiggle down 2nd Avenue until you hit Main Street to go north. You eliminate the left-hand turn at 3rd. And therefore, coming down Florida, I can still go north. Coming down Florida, I'll be able to turn on 2nd Avenue to get to 14th. I've just saved you $3 million, and I'm not an engineer. So I hope that you will consider saving $3 million. The second issue, I support removing next steps and focusing on the 205 sales tax reauthorization. That is the priority for City Council, in my opinion. I do not support the $20,020,000 for phase 3 design of next steps that I saw on capital projects. You saw that today at your study session. There is an election in April with new city councilors coming on board. I urge you not to fund phase 3 of the design. Take a wait and see approach to next steps. I urge the council and the city to remove immediately the pedlets in the 600 block. It's turning into a smoking area. There's pictures to prove that. There's also homeless people at night that park there. That's not what you want, and those pedlets are a detriment to businesses in the 600 block. The majority of business owners and employees spoke very clearly. They don't support next steps as business owners. We need parking, yes. Next steps to me is like building a house and not knowing how much it's going to cost. That's not a prudent way to run a city. I support removing it and not funding any more design. I'm inviting the mayor to come to Kiwanis Club. You can tell us all the benefits of the 205 sales tax reauthorization. The police chief is coming in October to talk about his needs. So I'm extending an invitation and we'll talk about calendars. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Bob Griffiths.
Hello, I'm Bob Griffith. I live in the county, but I'm a property owner downtown. I was a merchant downtown on Main Street for 30 years. So just like you, I've heard a lot about parking. And all the time, these last 2 years since Next Step was proposed, I've spent a lot of time talking to merchants and people downtown, property owners, business owners, and all of them that I can think of that I approached wanted to talk about parking before they even considered anything about Next Step or widening sidewalks or anything else. So tonight, I'd just like to bring your attention. I did some research. In 2007, there was a conceptual plan to address two problems that we had downtown. One was parking, and it was an identified problem, and it was in the 70s. So I've been talking about this for 50 years. It was proposed that we also needed a staging area for the trolley. So when the conceptual plans were drawn up for the transit center that now exists, it was a 3-story parking facility, 400 cars. Imagine that. Well, I went back, and I know most of you guys weren't here to remember this, but I went back trying to find that conceptual plan. I dug it up. I tried to email it to you today, and for some reason, either my end of the thing didn't work, or yours didn't. And all I've got is a black and white printer. But if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to hand you the conceptual plans of the parking facility that can be added to the transit center. It was built to accommodate the 3 additional stories. And take a look at that and just imagine what might, come of that. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate all you guys do, not just for coming to Next Step, but all of this time that you spend working for us. Thank you. Can I hand these out?
Antonia Clark had signed up twice.
It's, yeah, the first, the second. He can read
Probably.
it if he signed up for public comment, but I can't have people redoing it, just, yeah. And it's already closed, so public comment is closed once. But can you email it? Yeah. Okay, thank you, thank you.
And the last is Happy Beneman.
Evening, Council. My name is Happy Benaim. I am a resident of the Sparrow Apartments. I was formerly homeless when I came here. I want to speak on the issues of homeless crime, which usually puts a bad face on poverty here. There's a lot of people who are not criminals. Just prior to Purple Cliffs closing, Sheriff Smith and his lovely wife was at my apartment, and I guaranteed them, you know, my part of peaceful transition. Sparrow was never designed to solve the homelessness problem. And I spoke to the sheriff. I said, Sheriff, you should build you a brand new jail, one that I would like to go to myself. He said, what do you mean, Happy? I have 150 empty beds. I said, people act like there ain't no jail. Now we have no jail. And as I walk here from a Sparrow down those dark trails, I'm there at night, I'm here in the daytime, I see what other people see. And guess what? There is no jail. And people know that. And their behavior reflects that. Our parks are going to deteriorate. The pickleball court is wonderful. But what they see, I see, is covered over in human waste, drug addiction, mental illness. So I asked that, you know, I will submit this in the future. The core team is doing one heck of a job, but they're pitching the same thing that I'm selling. Recovery from drug addiction and alcoholism. I work closely beside them and all the treatment teams. There are no rehabs. People wait for a very, very long time for that. And the criminal behavior is like, I see the people who light the fires. I see the fires light. I see the people who commit the crimes, who are doing dangerous things in public, out of their minds on drugs. And then I see them the next day and they say, hey, you know, I just got out of jail for threatening people with a pistol at the post office. And I can't believe it. I'm out of jail so quick. There's no jail. They know that. I submit that perhaps the city should consider a city workforce center, which would also serve as a rehabilitative center where people who are just not receiving the help that the city has so amply offered and the county has offered, that they would just simply start a work center. I'm a fan of the old fashioned chain gang in a more compassionate sense, but there's no jail and people know that. So all night long, all day long, that whole cemetery area, everything else, it's on Elksview lot. It's complete pandemonium. And, you know, I have to live there and I look right out over 9th Street and I see it all. So what part I can be of help in, I just suggest that maybe needs to be a new approach to homelessness. Not all the poor are criminals. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And that concludes everyone who was signed up.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, item 14, other new business. We have one listed so far, 14.1. Provide direction to city staff to complete the design phase only of downtown Next Steps and not to pursue the construction phase for funding plan until after PD City Hall project has begun construction, submitted by myself. So this is limited discussion. This is just to get it on the agenda for next city council meeting. We heard an update during our study session. And just in case people didn't hear it, the funding for phase 3 design is all grant funded. There's not one penny out of the city money that's coming to phase 3 grant fund, to phase 3 design. Just so that's clear, and that was in the study session. And basically my reasoning for putting this on there and wanting to chat about it and have a bigger discussion with council was we attended the Next Steps Forum. And as one counselor, in order to make an informed decision, I do think I need costs. I need costs of the utilities. I need costs of the curb and gutter, the the extension sidewalks, potentially a parking garage, current estimate in order to make an informed decision. But I don't want it to compete with the 2005 RIOF. And so until that project is constructed, I want to have a council discussion on potentially holding any talk of Next Steps construction.
Just to clarify, you don't want for the PD City Hall to finish construction before we start talking about
At
it?
least start. I mean, we can talk about it. at
Start the
next
project,
meeting.
but then we can have another conversation.
Yeah.
around- Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. Is there support for that?
I would support that.
Yeah, I would support.
So you guys are slipping into old habits.
Oh, okay,
You,
wait.
you need a motion and a second to
Motion.
move a resolution onto the agenda next time. to
I'll make a
direct
motion to provide direction to city, to put this on the next city agenda
As a resolution,
as a resolution,
directing the staff
directing the staff to, put this on as a resolution on the next agenda, to provide direction to city staff to complete the design phase only of downtown Next Steps and not pursue the construction phase or funding plan until after PD City Hall project has begun construction.
Second.
Council discussion. Nothing? All right, roll call. Yes.
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 Anyone else have any other items under business? Sorry. Anyone else have any other items under new business? Sorry. Okay, so final item is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.